The air in the courtroom crackled with tension. Every eye in the room was fixed on the two figures standing before the judge's bench. Nia, a young woman, clutched the hand of a small child. Judge Callisto, a figure of formidable authority, was known for his strict adherence to the law. Nia's heart pounded against her ribs, her future hanging precariously in the balance. Could she possibly make him understand? Nia drew a deep breath, willing her voice to remain steady. She spoke of the challenges of being a single mother, of the constant struggle to make ends meet. She spoke of the parking ticket, the $200 fine that loomed over her like a crushing debt. Finishing her plea, Nia fell silent, her heart pounding in her chest. Nia held her breath, praying for a sign that he understood. Nia's life was a delicate balancing act, a constant juggling of responsibilities and worries. Her job at the bakery was demanding but rewarding. But the long hours and the meager pay were a constant source of anxiety. For Maya, she would fight with every fiber of her being. The day that would change everything began like any other. Maya, usually a sound sleeper, was stirring restlessly, her small face flushed. Nia felt a wave of alarm. Maya was burning up. A sick child meant a day off work, a day without pay. But first, she needed to get Maya's medication. The traffic was worse than Nia had anticipated. By the time she reached the pharmacy, Nia was running more than an hour behind schedule. She found a parking spot and rushed inside. As she approached her car, she saw it. A bright orange envelope. A parking ticket. $200. She sank down onto the curb, tears streaming down her face. The court summons arrived in the mail a few weeks later. Nia had been dreading this moment ever since she received the parking ticket. She was being summoned to appear before Judge Callisto. She had heard stories about Judge Callisto, whispers about his strictness. What if he didn't believe her? The day of the court hearing arrived, dawn breaking with a greyness that mirrored Nia's mood. Maya sensed her mother's nervousness, her usual exuberance replaced by an unusual quietness. The courthouse loomed before them, an imposing structure of granite and marble. The courtroom was even more intimidating than Nia had imagined. She felt a wave of dizziness wash over her as she took in the scene. Nia's name was called, her heart leaping into her throat. Judge Callisto looked even more formidable up close. Nia began to speak, her voice barely a whisper. Suddenly, a small voice broke the tense silence of the courtroom. "Mummy, I'm hungry," Maya piped up. A collective gasp rippled through the courtroom. But to her astonishment, Judge Callisto did not erupt in anger. Instead, he leaned forward slightly in his chair, a curious expression flitting across his face. "Hamburgers, you say?" he asked, his voice surprisingly soft. The fate of the parking ticket hung suspended in the air. A hush fell over the courtroom. Judge Callisto, known for his unwavering adherence to courtroom decorum, surprised everyone. "You must be very hungry, little one," he said. Nia watched in stunned silence as Maya launched into a detailed description of her favorite hamburger. The courtroom echoed with the unexpected sound of a child's innocent prattle. As Maya chattered on, a subtle shift occurred in the courtroom. Judge Callisto listened with an attentiveness that surprised even the court stenographer. "And what kind of work does your mother do to afford such delicious hamburgers?" he asked. I work at the bakery, Your Honor," Naya stammered. "Long hours, I imagine," the judge remarked, his gaze unwavering. The courtroom remained silent as Judge Callisto leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled thoughtfully beneath his chin. He regarded Naya for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he did something completely unexpected. He swiveled in his chair, his back to Nia and Maya, and addressed the entire courtroom. "This case," he began, his voice resonating with a newfound gravity, "has brought to light something we often forget within these walls, the human stories behind the charges, the struggles behind the infractions." He paused, his gaze sweeping over the assembled lawyers, court clerks and spectators. We become so focused on the letter of the law that we sometimes lose sight of its spirit, its purpose to ensure justice and fairness for all. Turning back to Nia, Judge Callisto continued, "While ignorance of the law is no excuse, it is clear that circumstances beyond your control led to your unfortunate parking predicament." Nia's heart skipped a beat. Was she actually hearing a note of understanding, of compassion in the judge's voice? It seemed impossible, yet there it was, a flicker of empathy in his usually impassive eyes. Therefore, Judge Callisto declared, "I am inclined to exercise leniency in this matter." A collective gasp rippled through the courtroom. Leniency? From Judge Callisto? Such a thing was unheard of, especially for a parking violation, however understandable the circumstances. Nia's life hadn't always been a relentless struggle. There was a time not so long ago when she dared to dream of a brighter future, a life filled with love, stability, and the promise of a fulfilling career. Back then, she had been a college student, her head full of ambitions, her heart brimming with hope. She had met Darius, her first love, during those carefree college days, his charm as intoxicating as the scent of spring blossoms. He was older, with a past that hinted at both shadows and resilience. He had served time for a minor drug offence, a youthful indiscretion he called it, vowing to turn his life around. Nia, blinded by love and her own compassionate nature, believed him. She saw the good in him, the potential for change, the yearning for redemption. Their love blossomed quickly, a whirlwind romance that swept them both off their feet. Darius seemed genuinely smitten, showering her with affection and promises of a future together. Nia, caught up in the whirlwind, readily embraced his dreams as her own. They moved in together, a tiny apartment filled with laughter, whispered secrets, and the intoxicating aroma of shared meals. Life wasn't always easy, but they faced each challenge together, their love a constant source of strength and support. Nia continued her studies, her dream of becoming a social worker fueling her determination. Darius found work as a construction worker, his strong back and willingness to work hard earning him the respect of his colleagues. Then, their world shattered. Nia discovered she was pregnant. It wasn't planned, but the news filled her with a mix of trepidation and joy. Darius, however, seemed less enthusiastic. The shadows in his eyes deepened, a flicker of something unreadable crossing his features. He became distant, his usual warmth replaced by a brooding silence that hung heavy in the air. Nia, her heart heavy with a premonition of something being amiss, tried to talk to him, to understand the sudden shift in his demeanor. But Darius evaded her questions, offering reassurances she didn't quite believe. The joy of impending parenthood was overshadowed by a growing unease, a gnawing sense that the foundation of their shared dreams was crumbling beneath her feet. The truth, when it finally emerged, was more devastating than anything she could have imagined. Darius vanished. He didn't just leave, he disappeared, taking with him every penny of their savings, the money Nia had painstakingly saved for tuition, for their future. The betrayal cut deep, a wound that went beyond the financial loss. It shattered her trust, her belief in the man she loved, in the future they had planned together. As the initial shock subsided, a cold fury settled in its place. Nia learned that Darius hadn't acted alone. He had been having an affair with her own younger sister, a betrayal that cut deeper than any knife. He had lured her sister away with promises of a new life, a fresh start, just as he had done with Nia. Alone and heartbroken, Nia faced the daunting task of rebuilding her life. She dropped out of college, her dreams of a social work career put on hold indefinitely. The need to provide for her child, her precious Maya, became her sole focus. She found work at the bakery, her days filled with the comforting aroma of yeast and sugar, her nights heavy with exhaustion. But then she would look into Maya's eyes, and a fierce determination would surge through her. She would be strong for Maya, for both of them. Nia never gave up on her dreams entirely. She enrolled in online courses whenever she could, hoping to build a better future for herself and Maya. As Maya grew older, she became aware of her mother's sacrifices, the long hours, and the constant struggle. She saw the tiredness in her mother's eyes, and a deep empathy blossomed within her young heart. Maya would help around the house, her small acts of kindness offering a glimmer of sunshine. She would sit at the kitchen table, drawing or working on her alphabet while her mother cooked. Maya didn't fully understand her mother's past, but knew their love was unwavering. Their love was the one constant, the source of strength in their lives. This understanding prompted Maya's innocent outburst in the courtroom. She didn't understand the law, only that her mother was upset. Her stomach was rumbling with hunger. In her mind, a hamburger seemed like the perfect solution. Maya's simple request had a profound impact on the judge. The tension in the courtroom was palpable. Every eye was fixed on Judge Callisto, waiting with bated breath for his next words. Nia stood before him, her heart pounding in her chest, her hand gripping Maya's tightly. The weight of the judge's decision, the potential consequences of that orange parking ticket, pressed down on her, threatening to suffocate the fragile hope that had begun to flicker within her. Judge Callisto's gaze swept over the courtroom, taking in the expectant faces, the hushed whispers, the palpable curiosity that hung in the air. He had been a judge for many years, had presided over countless cases, had witnessed the best and worst of humanity within these very walls. Yet in all his years on the bench, he had rarely encountered a case that had moved him, challenged him in quite the same way as this one. In light of the circumstances, he began, his voice resonating with a newfound sense of purpose, and considering the defendant's otherwise clean record, I have decided to dismiss the parking violation. A collective gasp rippled through the courtroom. Dismissal? It was unheard of, especially from a judge known for his strict interpretation of the law. People murmured among themselves, their surprise evident in their hushed whispers and exchanged glances. Section 2. Beyond the Fine. Nia stood frozen, her mind struggling to process the judge's words. Dismissal? She had dared to hope for leniency, for a reduced fine, but to have the ticket dismissed entirely, it was beyond anything she could have imagined. Relief washed over her, so profound it threatened to buckle her knees. But Judge Callisto wasn't finished. He reached for a sheet of paper on his desk, his eyes still fixed on Nia. Furthermore, he continued, his voice softening, I have taken the liberty of compiling a list of resources available to single parents in our community. He gestured towards the bailiff, who stepped forward and accepted the paper from the judge. This list, Judge Callisto explained, includes information about childcare assistance programs, job training initiatives, and support groups for single mothers. The bailiff approached Nia and handed her the list, his expression surprisingly kind. She accepted it with trembling hands, her heart overflowing with a gratitude that defied words. It was more than just a list. It was a lifeline, a beacon of hope in a world that had felt increasingly dark and overwhelming. Section 3. Justice tempered with mercy. Judge Callisto surveyed the courtroom, his gaze lingering on Maya, munching on a cookie. He had never considered himself sentimental, but today stirred something deep within him. This court, he declared, is not just for judgment, but where justice meets compassion. The law should uplift and support, not merely punish. He looked at Nia, his expression softening. "Go," he said gently. "Take care of yourself and your bright daughter." A wave of warmth spread through Nia's chest. She nodded, taking Maya's hand, and turned to leave. As they walked down the aisle, she felt the courtroom's gazes. They no longer felt judgmental, but respectful. Nia had entered, fearing the worst. She left feeling lighter, filled with gratitude, not just for the dismissal of the ticket, but for the judge's unexpected kindness. Section 1. Ripples of Kindness. News of Judge Callisto's unexpected act of kindness spread quickly, like ripples in a still pond. What began as a simple parking violation transformed into a heartwarming story that captured the attention of the local community and beyond. Newspaper headlines proclaimed, "Judge shows compassion for single mum," and child's hunger sparks unexpected act of kindness. Social media buzzed with praise for Judge Callisto, with many commending his empathy and willingness to see beyond the letter of the law. Nia, initially hesitant to be thrust into the spotlight, found herself overwhelmed by the outpouring of support. Strangers reached out with words of encouragement, offers of help, and even donations to ease her financial burden. The experience was both humbling and empowering, a testament to the inherent goodness that resides in people's hearts, often lying dormant until awakened by an extraordinary act of kindness. For Maya, the courtroom experience became a cherished memory, a tale she would recount with wide-eyed wonder for years to come. She didn't fully grasp the complexities of the situation, but she understood that the judge, a figure who had initially seemed stern and imposing, had shown her and her mother kindness when they needed it most. She proudly displayed the list of resources Judge Callisto had given them, her small hand carefully tracing the words as if they held a magical power. Section 2. The human face of justice. In the quiet solitude of his chambers, Judge Callisto reflected on the day's events, the encounter that had shaken him from his usual courtroom detachment and rekindled a spark of empathy he feared he had lost. He had always prided himself on his impartiality, his unwavering adherence to the law. But Maya's innocent plea, Nia's quiet desperation, had chipped away at the wall he had built around his heart, reminding him that behind every case, every charge, there were human lives, stories of struggle and resilience that often went unheard within the cold, impersonal walls of the courtroom. He realized that true justice wasn't simply about interpreting statutes and handing down sentences. It was about understanding the context, recognizing the humanity behind each case, and, when appropriate, tempering the law with compassion. The experience had been a powerful reminder that even small acts of kindness, a moment of understanding, could have a profound impact, not just on the individuals involved, but on the very fabric of justice itself. The parking ticket, once a symbol of Nia's struggles, became a catalyst for change, a reminder that even in the most unexpected of places, compassion could prevail, and the human spirit, like a tiny seed pushing through concrete, could find a way to bloom. And Judge Callisto, touched by the encounter, found himself embarking on a new chapter in his long career, one where justice, tempered with mercy, would be his guiding principle.